Flying out of the Australian twilight is one of the most successful mammals on the planet. The bat. They're the second largest order of mammals after the rodents, and the only ones capable of sustained flight. One group of bats, the flying foxes, are among the most gregarious of their kind, living communally in noisy tens of thousands. Spending their time feeding, fighting for dominance, and indulging in a rather torrid love life. They're found roosting in the trees across Australia, a vast island continent, home to some of the most unusual and fascinating animals on the planet. These are the secrets of the flying fox. Cutting a lush green swathe through the bustling metropolis of Sydney, Australia, is Centennial Park. In among its lofty treetops live around 20,000 flying foxes. They got this name because their long muzzles give them a foxy appearance. They're members of an ancient species. Fossils of their ancestors date back around 58 million years. There are 4 kinds of flying fox in Australia, but these grey-headed flying foxes are the most numerous. They have a distinctive gingery collar and, unlike other fruit bats, fur that goes all the way down to their feet. With a wingspan of more than a metre, they're the largest fruit-eating bat in Australia. These highly sociable mammals like to live tightly packed, wingtip to wingtip, in extremely large groups, all along the eastern coastal belt of Australia. From the cool climes of Victoria in the south, right up into the tropics of Queensland in the north. Wherever they go, the bats are incredibly noisy. The sounds they make are a complex form of communication. Grey-headed flying foxes have been recorded making over 30 different calls. Moving from place to place as their food trees come into flower and fruit, they're extremely adaptable and can live in the depths of the rainforest, on farmland, and right next to humans. This colony lives in a park right in the middle of a town in New South Wales. The flying foxes are so flexible, they've got used to cars passing by right next to where they rest and sleep, and are tolerant of humans. For flying foxes, the coming of darkness means feeding time. Every dusk they take to the skies en masse to find food. Their flying height will vary according to the topography of the ground below them. But their cruising altitude is around 30 to 80 metres, at speeds between 24 and 40 kilometres per hour. Many bats use a kind of organic sonar called echolocation to zero in on insects and eat them. But flying foxes don't hunt live prey. They eat fruit, so they don't use echolocation. They use their eyesight. They have large eyes, particularly well adapted to recognising colours at night, which along with an excellent sense of smell helps to identify edible fruits and blossoms. The bats have found one of their favourite foods, the blossom of the eucalyptus tree. It's one of Australia's most important and distinctive trees, with many hundreds of different species, many of them known as gum trees by the locals. The flowers are rich in nectar, and the flying foxes love them. They aren't the only creatures to come out and feed after the sun's gone down. In fact, Australia's wild animals have a thriving nightlife. Wombats and brush-tailed possums are nocturnal, as are quokkas, small marsupials. They all do most of their feeding at night. Little penguins go fishing all day, and for them, night time is for socialising. For the flying foxes, though, night time is all about getting down enough food. They have an extremely fast digestive system, and in a single night can eat 2.5 times their own body weight. It's the only way they can acquire sufficient protein from the fruit they eat. They're well adapted to eat soft blossoms and fruit. The roof of their mouth or palate is deeply ridged, and their tongue crushes the food up against it. They can process large amounts of food rapidly by sucking the nectar out of blossoms or chewing fruit. Flying foxes help spread tree and plant species. Most tree species propagate themselves by producing pollen and seeds that contain their genetic information. They rely on the wind, insects or other animals to spread this around and ensure their survival. It takes between 12 and 24 minutes for food to pass through flying foxes' digestive tracts. By the time they excrete seeds or pollen, they've often flown onto a new area, giving the plant species a chance to grow somewhere new. It's early morning in Sydney's Centennial Park, and the foxes are returning from foraging, back to their daytime roosting area or camp. Camps are the focal point of flying fox life. This is the place to rest up after feeding, find a mate, have babies, safely bring up offspring, and argue with the neighbours. Within each geographical area, they generally stay faithful to the same campsites, one camp for the summer and another for the winter. Foxes are generally pregnant during the winter and raise their young at summer camps before mating again. Out in the rural farmlands of central New South Wales, 240 kilometres north of Sydney and near to the small town of Muswellbrook, there's an even bigger colony of around 40,000 bats. Flying foxes like their camps to be absolutely jam-packed, and Muswellbrook is no exception. The colony occupies every tree, vine, and shrub available. With space at such a premium in the camp, each flying fox returning home from feeding must come into land in a tiny spot. But a large wingspan and a tight space to manoeuvre into makes landing a tricky task. They must visually select their spot and slow their speed right down using all their wing surfaces at different angles, like the flaps on an aircraft. Then hover and slot into place. The foxes need to develop their aerial skills. Often the younger, less experienced flyers will crash into branches or vegetation and rip through their wings. Bat wings are living tissue, so small rips and tears will heal, but large holes can compromise their ability to fly and to feed. Their manoeuvrability is all down to the physical makeup of their wings. Semi-transparent, the wings are made up of 2 layers of almost hairless skin stretched over the 5-digit forelimb. Sandwiched between the 2 sheets of skin is a thin layer of connective tissue containing blood vessels, nerves, and elastin fibres. To be aerodynamically efficient, the foxes need their wings to be tough enough not to tear in flight, whilst also having the flexibility to fold around their bodies when resting. It's the elastin reinforcing the wing membranes that makes all of this possible. The wings are crucial to getting airborne, flying and feeding, so the fox's very survival depends on keeping them in tip-top shape. They spend a part of each day performing essential wing maintenance, cleaning every inch of the leathery membrane. Flying foxes' wings are useful for far more than just flying. The membranes are spread out over a skeleton resembling an elongated human hand, equipped with a thumb. And, just like human thumbs, they're immensely useful. They work as handy hooks and climbing gear. They help the flying foxes scale their way up trees and manoeuvre themselves into positions it would be hard to fly into. Their thumbs also make very serviceable weapons. Tipped with a razor-sharp claw, these bat digits are top tools for defending their spot. Jostling for position is a major fox pastime. And the daytime roosts are where flying fox politics play out. Although to human eyes the trees look pretty similar, to a flying fox, every inch of every branch has social significance. There's a hierarchy within the bat camp. Males will show their dominance by claiming and defending the best spots in the trees. The highest, coolest spots in trees at the centre of the camp are deemed the most desirable pieces of real estate. If a male can establish one of these as his territory, he'll have higher status and be more attractive to females. Once a male has staked out his claim to one of the top spots, it's his job to defend it. Vigorously. Fall is the time of year when all the pushing and shoving could pay off. It's mating season, and the most successful males will be those who've put in the hard work beforehand to consistently win the high status spots. This adult male has claimed one of the most prized perches, high up in one of the best trees. It's his way of clearly signalling his dominance and superiority to the females. The mating system of the grey-headed flying fox is described as a lek, where the female decides which male to mate with based on his location within the camp. The better the location, the greater the genetic fitness of the male. Or so the theory goes. This female has selected one of the dominant males as her breeding partner and moves from her own spot to be with him on his branch. But she's not alone. She's joined by other females who've also chosen this male. Up to 5 females will form his harem for this breeding season. They start the mating ritual with some exploratory sniffing on the male's part. The female tolerates his attention, so mutual grooming is next, which can last half an hour. After a relatively long wooing, the act itself is over fairly quickly. And once again, those thumbs come in handy. The female may not look that keen, but she's actively moved from her own roosting spot to be with this dominant male. And they'll copulate up to 4 times an hour over several days. For the other non-dominant males, mating is less of a surefire certainty. They haven't been strong enough or dominant enough to fight their way to the centre of the colony and up to the top spots in the highest trees. Being on the outer fringes of the camp in the less desirable spots means they have little chance of attracting a harem. So they need to work hard to find a partner amongst the remaining females who have chosen not to join a dominant male. It's not known why some females opt out of the hierarchical system. This lower-ranking male has been successful and found a single female. Bats operating outside the harem system are often monogamous, and these two may stay together for the entire mating season. But this young, non-dominant male hasn't established a pair bond. He doesn't have the benefit of sitting back and letting the ladies flock to him. So he's got to take his chances and try his luck with any female he can find. He uses his claws to climb around the tree, encountering females as he goes. The young male is really covering some ground, checking out every female in his path. The choice of whether to mate or not lies with the females, and they're signalling their disinterest by completely ignoring him, moving away, or using their own claws to make their point. But this bat Lothario isn't giving up so easily. Doggedly, he works his way around the tree, sniffing at females to see if they'll reciprocate and let him move on to some grooming. For a long time, it's a fruitless task. But it's vital for the colony's long-term survival that even his breeding season is successful. Although these colonies may seem large, flying foxes are listed as vulnerable. Thousands are shot by fruit farmers or die in fires or droughts every year. So the ardent young bat needs to be persistent. And eventually he gets a female interested enough to mate with him. Breeding season is a very active time for the foxes. They're feeding every night and returning to the camp in the daytime to mate. But breeding ends with the arrival of winter, and the pregnant females will have a quieter camp life for the next 6 months. As the sun gets higher in the sky, it's time to prepare for sleep. The bat preference for living in such tightly packed quarters makes for very eventful and noisy bedtimes. This is also the time when many of the bats go for a poop. For this job, they need to turn right side up. Their roost is around 16 kilometres from where they fed last night. And by carrying pollen on their fur and excreting seeds in this new location, they're spreading the tree species. The flying fox's bedtime routine involves a long checklist. Not only must they safely land, tend to their wings, defend their spot against any newcomers, and empty their bowels. They also have to get themselves to the right temperature. Like humans, they continuously regulate their body temperature. Their optimal levels are between 35 and 40 degrees Celsius. In Australia's often harsh climate, this isn't always easy, and their wings are a vital aid. The blood vessels that run throughout the wing membrane help the bat with thermoregulation. Stretching their wings fully can be both a display and a way of getting warmth from the sun. And on hot days, fanning their wings can promote heat loss. On cold days, they wrap their wings tightly around themselves to retain body heat. With such a large wingspan, there's plenty of membrane to act as a blanket, and even a raincoat in bad weather. Having made sure they're comfortable, it's finally time to get some rest. But for animals that sleep upside down, an absolutely critical preparation for a good long nap is making sure they can't fall off their perch. The flying foxes have a brilliant adaptation for their topsy-turvy life. Feet with a locking mechanism. When a bat hangs onto a branch, its leg muscles contract to pull the toes tight. It's a ratchet system, which locks the toes in place with an immensely powerful grasp. It means the foxes can rest and sleep securely, even in high winds. Another adaptation allows the legs to bend both ways, forward and back, so they can switch direction without changing their grip. This is possible because the bat's femur, or thigh bone, is twisted, and the kneecaps are reduced or absent, giving a greater degree of movement at the knee joint. Flying foxes have another modification that's essential to spending so much time upside down. Their cardiovascular system. A human wouldn't be able to spend so much time suspended like this because blood would begin to pool in places that it shouldn't, like the lungs and head. Although bats have a typical mammalian cardiovascular system like us, they've evolved an unusually large heart. Relative to body weight, their hearts are at least twice the size of the hearts of other similar-sized mammals. This oversized heart can keep enough blood circulating to prevent it from flooding the brain. The flying foxes spend time upside down to relax. And if not sleepy, get some sunbathing in. They'll rest and doze for most of the day in their spots in the trees. But as prey animals for eagles and pythons, they remain ever alert and mindful of what's happening around them. In the heart of Sydney, the Centennial Park foxes have their days' sleep disturbed by aerial visitors. A group of black cockatoos is circling the camp. They're around the same size as the flying foxes and just as noisy. The cockatoos appear to be deliberately harassing the bats. They may want to intimidate the bats out of their roosting spots so they can take over the trees. Eventually, the noisy birds move on, and the flying foxes can finally, with some squabbling, get to sleep. In the Musselbrook camp, the pastoral peace and quiet is shattered by the arrival of a metal monster. Even though the foxes have deliberately established their camp here, the noise of the train's horn unsettles them, and they take to the skies in an unusual daytime burst of activity. It takes them a while to regain some equilibrium. As twilight falls, the flying foxes are awake and restless. Once again, it's almost time for them to leave the camp and fly out for their evening's feeding. The locking system in their legs has kept them safely hanging upside down without falling all day. Now it's time to release this powerful grip. To unlock the tightly fastened feet, they must flap their wings until they become horizontal. Taking the body weight away from their legs releases their feet from the branch. There's a definite technique to it, and inexperienced flyers can struggle with unlocking their feet. Moving out from the camp in the evening to find food is called emergence, and it's a waiting contest. Depending on what's flowering or fruiting, the bats may have to travel 40 kilometres to find food. So those who leave earliest theoretically get the first chance at the nearest fruit. But they also have a higher chance of being caught by predatory birds like kites and eagles. In the end, it's usually adults like this, females with a poorer body condition, that leave first. They're the hungriest, so more likely to take the risk. Like mating rights, the emergence time of the male adults is related to their social standing. In the mating season, a flying fox with a harem will only leave his spot once his last female has flown out, so as to avoid having her stolen by a later leaving, lower-ranked male. If they're not waiting to steal the top bat's harem member, the non-dominant males will leave with the adult females. But eventually, they all take flight. As the days lengthen and winter turns to spring, the females are now 6 months pregnant and get ready to give birth. When their time is close, they segregate themselves away from the males. Birthing season is in the Australian spring, September through to November. Flying foxes give birth in daylight hours while hanging upside down. The baby emerges head first and is caught in the mother's wings. The baby suckles from a teat in her wing pit. She'll give him milk for at least 6 weeks after birth. Baby bats, or pups, can't regulate their body temperatures, so it's very important that he stays as close to mum as possible. If it's too cold, she can wrap her wings tightly around the pup. On the days when it's too hot, she can gently fan him with her wing. The pup will be very closely attached like this for the first 2 or 3 weeks of his life. He has a hook-like growth on the inside of his thumb claw that gives him a tight grip on his mum's fur. And it needs to be an extremely strong grip. For the first few weeks of his life, his mum takes him everywhere. Even going on foraging trips with baby clinging on underneath her as she flies along. After 3 weeks or so, he'll get too heavy for mum to carry, so she'll leave him in a nursery in the middle of the camp with the other babies while she goes feeding at night. He'll wean at around 12 weeks old and learn to fly at about the same age. But he'll still stay close to mum for 5 or 6 months. Flying foxes usually only have 1 pup a year. This slow population growth leaves the entire species vulnerable to environmental stresses like fires, heat waves and drought, and entire colonies have been wiped out. There's also a high mortality rate in young bats over the winter when they're less than a year old, especially if they have to cover long distances to find food. Learning how to find reliable food sources is vital for young bats, and getting it wrong can be fatal. The Musselbrook pups are around 9 months old now and have left mum. They've set up their own little area on the edges of the colony. It functions as a baby training camp. Here, they learn the finer points of bickering amongst themselves and the harsh realities of life in a dominance-based social hierarchy. They get the knack of branch negotiation and climbing. They also practice their flying skills and the best way to land. As well as how to negotiate some of the more tricky terrain, like the reed beds below the trees. Flying foxes often make their camps by large bodies of water, like lakes or rivers. It's thought that the proximity of a geographical feature like this may make navigation back home easier. But it also means that in the more northern parts of Australia, water predators are a danger, especially to young, inexpert climbers. Crocodiles will make a meal of any flying fox that ventures too close. so the young bats must stay vigilant. The youngsters master the basics over spring and summer. Then the weather turns cooler. As autumn and winter approach in March and April, they're still not expert aviators yet, but they're fit to fly. It's time for the entire colony to move north to its winter camp. Fruit bats like these flying foxes are critical species, playing a key role in the ecology of any system they inhabit throughout the world. Without these furry flyers, the pollination and seed dispersal of important tree species would be endangered. Whether in the heart of a city park or far out in the bush, these winged mammals are vital to the continuing beauty and diversity of the Australian landscape, no matter how much noise they make.